Hi everyone, this is Jamshed here, and in this video we will understand what are Angular components. So Angular components are basically the building blocks of any Angular application. We combine multiple components to form the application, and each component can be related to one another, which we will see in the future videos. You can consider one component to have one particular responsibility. Say for example, one component must be having a header, one component must be having a footer, or maybe one component is just there to list the data, or one component is there to show the contact details. Each individual component in Angular has its own TypeScript file, HTML file, as well as the CSS file. Let's check out this app component which is provided to us by the boilerplate Angular application. So here we can see we have to define the class name, which is actually the component name. This class name is actually used in different application files in Angular itself, as well as we have to define the HTML and the CSS file which we are going to use for this particular component. Generally, the HTML and CSS files for a component are based in the same folder as the TypeScript file, and it is also a good practice to keep all the related files for a component in the same folder which bears the component name. So as we can see in this component, we have the app.component.html file which has all the HTML code mentioned over here. So whatever UI part we mention in the HTML file, that would be reflected on the browser, as well as we have the CSS file. So whatever CSS we mention in this file, that would affect only this particular component. So we have to keep in mind that whatever HTML and CSS we are mentioning for this particular component, that would affect only this component itself. However, if we have other components mentioned in our HTML, then those components would also be reflected within our UI. So there are different ways to create Angular component. One way is to create it individually. We create the individual files, the TypeScript, HTML and CSS files. And the more preferred and the easier way is to create the component using Angular CLI. Most of the Angular developers prefer Angular CLI to create the components, because with few words in the command we can have our component created in seconds, as well as integrated in the module file as well. So let's see how we can create an individual component. We will go to the command prompt. To create Angular component using Angular CLI, you have to install Angular CLI in your system. We have gone through the installation and the setup process in our previous video. If you want to go through it, then please check my previous video. Now let's go to the Angular CLI. So we have our command prompt opened over here. Let's say I want to create a component. Let me type the command and I will explain what the command does. So what this command will do is it will create a component called home in the components folder. ng is used to start any Angular CLI related command, and G is the shortcut for generate, and C is the shortcut for component. So basically we are telling Angular CLI to generate a component which is ng-gc, and we have to mention the path, the folder path where we want to create the Angular component. So I have mentioned components/home. Basically we will store all of our components in the components folder, and the skip tests command will omit the test files which we don't need as of now. So let's run this command and see the output. So here we can see the command line mentioning to us that it has created the app/component/home HTML, TS and CSS files, and it has also updated the app module file for us. So within couple of seconds Angular CLI creates the component for us. Let's check the file. So you can see we have the components folder over here, and it has home folder as well. So there are different options also available in Angular CLI which we will see in our future video. So you can see this is our home component. It has selector, template URL, style URLs, all configured by the Angular CLI. and it is also added to our app.module file. So now if I want to modify this file, or I just want to check if this file is working or not, I'll just include it in my app.component file. I will remove this and I will just add, it is giving me auto input. I will just add it over here. I'll save it and I'll run my file. To run our Angular application, we will mention ng-serve. So it has started our Angular application, and if we open our browser and go to localhost 4200, we should be able to see our application. So here we have integrated the app-home component within our app component. That is why we are seeing home works, which is mentioned in our home component right here. So one more important thing about components is that different components can have different relations with each other. Say for example, this particular component, app component, has now become the parent component, and the app-home component is the child component, because app home component is within the app component. So this is one of the ways parent-child component relation works. Other one could be a common component, which is like a nav bar. We have a nav bar and which is available in all of the components. Other one could be, say, a sibling components, wherein each component is side by side. Say say for example, I have another app component like this. We don't even have it as of now, but in case we have it, then these two components would become sibling components. And another one could be totally unrelated components which do not have anything common to each other, but are important for the application to work. In case in an interview, if you are asked what is an Angular component, you can mention that Angular components are the basic building blocks of Angular application, and each particular component has a specific responsibility to perform, and each component has its own TypeScript, HTML and CSS files, and different components could share the same data using services in Angular. So in this video, we learned what are Angular components, what all files are included in the Angular components, and what are the best way to keep the Angular component files. So if you liked the video, then please like and subscribe to my channel, and if you have any queries or questions, then please mention it to me in the comments. Thank you.